Good afternoon, and welcome to the 55 and Better webinar series. Thank you to everyone who is joining us today for our Lunchtime Conversations webinar. My name is Lindsay Haynes. I am the event manager with Prairie Mountain Media, and I will be moderating today's session. So our Zoom webinar format gives you the opportunity to submit questions at any point in time during today's presentation. So whether you're on a computer, a mobile device, or a tablet, you'll just click on the Q&A box or our chat box down at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and there will be where you can enter those questions, which we will address after the presentation concludes. So our presenter today will present for about anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes, and then those last 20 minutes will address all of your questions. Today, we do have the pleasure to hear from Evon Schones. She is the Director of Wellness Programs and the Fitness Supervisor with the Good Samaritan Society in Loveland. Today, she'll be covering practical tips for preventing falls, a topic that is very popular, and so we look forward to your questions at the end. With that being said, I'll go ahead, I'll turn it over to Evon and she'll take it away.
Hi, I hope you can see me.
Yes.
Okay, good. Let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll go ahead and get started. All right. I was telling somebody last year this was so new. It was a challenge to get everything going, but this year everybody knows how to Zoom.
I know, you're a pro now.
I know. One of the few good things about COVID, I suppose, is we all became a little more technologically adept. All right. Well, today, as Lindsay said, I'm going to be giving a few practical tips for preventing falls. Falls just happen. And the older you get, the more likely they are to happen. In fact, they're the leading cause of injury for older Americans. 1 in 4 people over the age of 65 fall every year. And the older you get, the more likely you are to fall. Sometimes the result of a fall can be life-threatening and certainly life-changing. So the more you can do to avoid a fall, the better. Falls are not inevitable. If you understand what might put you at risk, you can stop them before they happen. All right, let's get to some of those. What are some of the common causes of falling? Well, they often overlap. 3 of the ones that we seem to get most around here are people suddenly getting dizzy or lightheaded. And normally that is from orthostatic hypertension. They change positions very quickly. We'll get into a little bit more description of that next. There are some hazards around the home that we can change. Really simple to do. And then a sedentary lifestyle. That one's a little bit more difficult to address, but probably the most important, in my opinion, of course. Orthostatic hypertension, what is it? Well, a head rush happens when you change positions very quickly. Where the heart and brain are suddenly elevated, gravity causes the blood to pool in your legs. Blood pressure drops, and then baroreceptors in your heart and neck sense the drop in blood pressure and send information to your brain to increase heart rate and narrow the blood vessels. That stabilizes your blood pressure. A head rush happens when the signal either to or from the baroreceptors gets delayed. The symptoms of this happening, you've all felt them before, are dizziness, heaviness in the arms and legs, fainting, nausea, blurred vision. Well, as you age, the baroreceptors get a little less sensitive. So it takes longer for that signal to get from the body to the brain and then from the brain back down to the body. Some of the causes of this delay, other than aging, can be dehydration, medications, nervous system or thyroid disorders, having a low blood pressure, unbalanced electrolytes, low blood sugar, being on bed rest for a long time, like if you've been sick or if you've had an injury. These are all things that can cause a head rush. So what do? Well, if you tend to get dizzy when you stand up, first, check with your doctor to see if there are any underlying causes or if you need a medication change. Some other things that you can do after you've checked with your doctor are drinking more decaffeinated beverages. When you get older, I don't know why, but sitting and drinking coffee happens all the time. It's social, it's warm during the day when it's a little bit hard to keep your temperature regulated, so you want something warm. Well, caffeine dehydrates you. So it's really important to drink some non-caffeinated beverages. Seltzer water, regular water is the best choice. I drink coconut water quite a bit. There's only one that I like though. It's called C2O. Costco now carries it, by the way, but it tastes great. And it doesn't have that kind of not so pleasant coconut water taste that a lot of them have. But anyway, if you're not a fan of drinking non-caffeinated beverages, you can also eat high water content foods, watermelon, really juicy ripe fruits, cucumbers, celery, peppers, any water-based food. Lettuce is another one, will help you get that hydration level up without having to drink all day long. Don't exercise outdoors in the heat. If you are exercising outdoors in the heat, two things happen. One, you get dehydrated, but two, you're losing a lot of sodium. A lot of people have been told told to avoid sodium because of a heart condition or high blood pressure or something like that. If you have not been told by your doctor to avoid sodium, you might want to add a little extra in there throughout the day, especially if you're really warm and you maybe are a little sweaty throughout the day. So don't exercise outdoors in the heat, but if it's also very warm indoors, you might wait or make sure there's a fan on you or something, but you might wait till it cools off a little bit before you get your exercise in. Try wearing compression socks. It's such a simple thing to do. Compression socks keep the blood from pooling in your legs and then also make it easier for your body to push that fluid, the blood, back up to your heart, so you don't get dizzy as quickly. You will also notice, even if lightheadedness isn't a problem for you, if you wear compression socks, you'll notice you have a little bit more energy at the end of the day because your body's not working so hard with the blood pumping. Try eating smaller, low carbohydrate meals throughout the day. That can help keep your blood sugar a little more balanced. That can help keep you from getting dizzy. Also, sit and stand slowly. Remember, the baroreceptors are acting a little bit more slow than when you were younger. And so give them time, give those receptors time to catch up. So if I'm lying down, I'm going to stand, or I'll sit up, maybe hang my feet over the edge of the bed or the chair, get my blood pressure a little more regulated, stand up, hold on to something, whether it be your walker, whether it be a chair rail, stair railing, anything. Hold on to it until you stop getting dizzy. You'll notice too, if you ever start lifting weights, that dizziness happens a little bit more often because the blood travels to what's being used, the body parts that are being more used, and it takes a little bit more time to get back to your brain and to your heart. So just slow down a little bit, which kind of leads us into the next thing too. Another big cause for falls are just hazards around the house. So often I hear about people tripping on everyday items that they have around the house and having a terrible fall as a result. These falls are really easily avoided just by making a few changes around your house and by being a little bit more aware. My grandma was living in an assisted living center, and she was sitting on a couch, had a blanket over her lap, and was reading a book. Well, somebody knocked on her door, and she stood up very quickly and took a step without realizing that the blanket had wrapped around her legs. Well, of course, she couldn't take that step that she set out to, and down she went. She broke a hip. And unfortunately, that was the beginning of the end. We saw a rapid decline in her health. And if you have a loved one, that same situation can happen, but it's so easy to avoid just by paying a little bit more attention and by slowing down. Keep your pathways, your floors and the pathways in your home clear of magazines. They're very slippery. Newspapers, dog toys, electric cords, oxygen tubing. Gosh, put your shoes off to the side. Don't leave them in the middle of the floor. You know, you're always, when you had kids, you're always telling them to pick their stuff up, put their stuff away. Well, it's just as important when you get older because now it's a tripping hazard. So just put things away and out of your walking space. Remove throw rugs, or if you have to have a throw rug there, and I'm thinking, of course, in the bathroom, if you step out of the shower, you want something there to absorb the water that's coming off of you. So there's a place where you would need a throw rug or something like that. Well, tape it down. You can tape the edges of throw rugs down with something called carpet tape. Get that and tape the edges down. In my parents' house, they kept throw rugs down for a long time because they had an elderly dog that would slip on the hardwood floors. And same thing, you need to tape those down so that you don't catch your foot on the edge of them. When you're in the bathroom, use non-slip stickers or mats in the shower. And I think I hit on, I'm not sure if I hit on this yet or not, but when you're, no, I haven't. Okay. When you're sitting in a chair, use the 3 points of contact rule. 3 points of contact rule is 3 parts of your body should be touching whatever it is you're trying to sit in or stand up to before your weight goes to that place. So if I'm going to be sitting in a chair, I'm going to turn around first and make sure the chair is where I think it is. Then I'm going to turn back, take a few steps back, which shouldn't be too much. You should be right there until you feel the chair touching the backs of your legs. Reach back with one hand, put your hand on the armrest, and then sit back into the chair. You'll notice as people get a little older, they lean forward to sit down. Don't do that. Practice sitting back into the chair. And this will lead into exercise. Keeping those legs and your core strong is going to help you be able to do that. Another thing you can do is move plant stands and tables from high traffic areas. If you use a walker or a cane or any assisted device, you don't want that running into things in the hallway or around your house, but you also don't want them there for you to trip over or run into or fall over. Immediately clean up any spills. If something spills on the ground, get it cleaned up right away so you don't end up slipping on it. You can use a long-handled mop. You don't have to get down on your hands and knees. Store things like dishes, towels, pots and pans, somewhere between your hips and shoulders where you can reach them easily without having to really lean side to side or getting down on the floor. And please, please do not get up on a stool to reach something that's too high. It is okay to keep things that you use all the time on a countertop as long as you don't have to create a tripping or fall hazard to get to them. Keep in mind, if you store things nice and low, you'll have to get back up from the floor when you get them. So if your pots and pans are down underneath a cabinet in your kitchen, maybe move them a little bit higher place, especially if it's something you use all the time. Light up your living space. If you're walking around in your house in the dark and there just happens to be something in your way, you're pretty much going to trip and fall. So please, please light up your living space, put some night lights in, and certainly make sure that the path between you and the light switch is clear. So if you sit in a chair and you want to get up and turn on a light, make sure the pathway between that chair and that light switch is clear. Same with from your bed to the light switch, because sometimes you're going to be in the dark. Just make sure nothing's there for you to trip over when you can't see it. Wear sensible shoes. If your shoes go on easily, they come off easily too. And we oftentimes see people tripping over a pair of clogs or flip-flops or those tennis shoes that are the mules that you just slip on. They come off really easily too. So just be careful. When you turn, lift your feet to turn. So instead of planting your feet and then twisting, you're standing, lift one foot and turn it, and then lift the other foot and turn it. That way your feet won't get stuck in a carpet. Or if you can see my hands, you turn. Now this foot is behind this one and you trip over your own feet. So just be careful with that. And speaking of tripping, be careful with gravel and ice outside in the wintertime. And I'll tell you, I have a story. When I was in my 20s, I was out with friends up in the mountains. And of course, you're distracted talking to your friends and so forth. Well, I hit a patch of black ice and I went down right on my tailbone, just like you see in the cartoons, but it wasn't funny. Feet went up, down I went. Well, I broke my tailbone. I didn't realize it at the time, but I also broke another vertebrae. Well, for months, even up to 2 years after that, the pain was excruciating. And I was working in a physical therapy clinic and I asked people to look at it. Nobody noticed anything. And of course, I didn't want to go to the doctor like an idiot. Fast forward 30 years, I had a spinal fusion surgery because I had let that damage go so long. I ended up getting my spine fused. Now, there's more to the story than that. There were other injuries along the way and some really sweet genetics, but in any case, just be careful. That ice and the gravel, that is a huge, huge falling issue. If you tend to get dizzy or lose your balance, you might consider using an assistive device, a walker or a cane or walking poles. We also see people with leg weakness, neuropathy, really do a lot better if they have something to hold on to. Any kind of a neurological issue, whether you've had a stroke or MS or Parkinson's, use that assistive device to help you get around for a couple of reasons. One, you're less likely to fall when you're using it. Two, it gives you a sense of security. And three, it offers that four-wheeled walkers, what I'm talking about, it offers a place to sit when you get tired. Also, make use of an occupational therapist. An occupational therapist is a professional who can make changes to everyday items or habits to make activities of daily living easier. Oftentimes, you can get a written prescription or a written order from your doctor, and a physical therapist is usually covered by Medicare or your current insurance, just like physical therapy or speech therapy would be. So please make use of that. If you think that you could use any of these following things that I'm about to tell you that you can read on this slide, call somebody and get some help from an occupational therapist. They can help put handrails on both sides of the stairway, raise toilet seats with armrests, and that's good for post-surgery. Grab bars for the shower and tub, shower seats. They can get you set up with a walk-in shower or a walk-in bathtub. Now here's my favorite, and to me, the most important: exercise. Never stop exercising. And if you did stop exercising, start today. Again, not out in the heat though. Many falls can be attributed to a loss of strength, balance, or agility. There are so many ways to combat these problems, but all of them take some effort on your part. The phrase use it or lose it could never be truer than when talking about preventing falls or decreasing the severity of a fall. In fact, a study at Harvard Medical School showed that taking part in exercise programs reduced the severity of falls that cause injury by 37%, falls leading to serious injury. Let me start that over. A study at Harvard Medical School showed that taking part in exercise programs reduces falls that cause injury by 37%, falls leading to serious injury by 43%, and falls that lead to broken bones by 61%. Well, how exactly does exercise do this? Lots of reasons. Exercise can increase muscular strength. Strong muscles can help prevent falls, but can also provide padding around bones and joints. So there are 3 muscle groups that I have found from working at Good Sam with the seniors here, that when they say stay strong and agile, it greatly reduces the risk of falls. So we'll go over all that pretty soon. Exercise can help increase the strength of your bones. So if you do fall, you're less likely to break something. And exercise also improves coordination and agility to help avoid that fall in the first place. All right, so the 3 muscle groups. First is the anterior tibialis. The anterior tibialis is this red here that run along the outside of the shin bones. This muscle group pulls the toe up when you walk. So it's called dorsiflexion. Your toe will lift as you're walking, and then you heel toe walk. This muscle is what's responsible mostly. There's other muscles, of course, and other things, but this muscle specifically lifts the toe so that when you step, you heel toe, heel toe. If this muscle is weak, you'll take a step and the toe stays down. So as you go to take another step, your toe will catch on something. An oxygen cord, a dog toy. This is the things that we talked about tripping on earlier. This is the muscle that you want to keep strong. You can even trip. I tripped over my own feet. Have you heard somebody say that? You catch your toe in the carpeting or something. Oftentimes it's because this muscle has become weak or has lost some agility. Let me read my notes here so I don't leave anything out. Okay, exercises to focus on to increase the strength of this muscle would be anything that lifts the toe. So if you're sitting at your desk or at a chair, focus on pulling those toes up and back down, up and down, up and down. You should feel the front of your shin start to get a little burning sensation, and then you know you're working the right muscle. Walking uphill is a great way to focus on dorsiflexion. You have to lift that toe because the road or the ground is like this, so that toe has to lift a little bit higher with each step. Rolling the ankles, foot pedaling, anything that forces that shin bone to start to get a little bit sore is going to give you a little bit more bonus and strength and agility and keep you from tripping over stuff. Another muscle is called the gluteus medius. And you can see by the picture here that the gluteus medius attaches to the iliac crest. So this is a picture of the backside, your tush. It attaches to the back of the iliac crest and then down to the greater trochanter of the hip muscle. So what this muscle does is, as you're taking steps, one leg for just a short moment in time will hold all of the body's weight. Well, during that time, the gluteus medius's job is to keep the hips level. If that muscle is weak, one hip will drop with each step. If I lift my left leg looks longer. It's actually my hip dropping down, and then the other side will drop down and the other side will drop down. if you're walking behind somebody and they have this problem, they look like their hips are really tilting back and forth with each step instead of staying level. Think of if you're taking a step and suddenly your left leg becomes 2 inches longer. Think of all the things that will trip you up. The best way that I can, not an analogy, but you'll notice this most if you're walking upstairs and you keep catching your foot on the step every time you step up, you just don't quite get that leg up high enough. That's a really good sign that possibly this muscle could use a little strengthening. Well, so what do you do to strengthen this muscle? Anything where you're standing on one leg and then the other leg is lifting, abducting, so going out to the side. So stand on your left leg, turn your right toe in slightly, and then adduct or bring that. If you're standing on your left leg, you're bringing your right leg out and back in. It needs to stay in a straight line, completely perpendicular with the weight-bearing leg, out and in. If you're lifting your leg forward, you're not going to hit it. You got to go straight out to the side, maybe even slightly back, but you can't go forward. If you have a tendency to go forward, another good sign that that muscle has gotten a little weak. You can also do a clamshell. So you're laying down on your side with your knees bent and your feet together, and you're just lifting one leg up and back down like so. That's called a clamshell. Really good for keeping that gluteus medius strong or getting it strong. That's something you can start right away. You can also start by standing on one leg and just lifting the opposite hip up and down. It sounds kind of funny, but you'll recognize it when you do it. So stand on the left leg, and now I'm raising my right hip up and down, and then switch to the other leg. That's your gluteus medius. Okay, the third muscle group we're going to talk about. There's a lot of muscles that go into the core, which is what we're talking about, but we're going to mainly focus on the rectus abdominis, so the front of your stomach, your sides, and your low back. To me, this is probably the most important muscle group, not specifically for fall prevention, but for general body health. The stronger your core muscles are, the further you can lean side to side without toppling over. So keeping your core strong. Remember how we talked earlier about keeping things between your hips and your shoulders? You can cheat a little bit and reach if you have a nice strong core. The gluteus muscles are oftentimes included in this group, but because we already covered them in the last slide, we're not going to worry too much about it here. Well, the core muscles, the ones that we're talking about, do two main things. They move the spine when you sit, when you twist, when you stand up from the floor, when you extend or bend forward. Those muscles are always engaged and in use. Second, they stabilize your spine. So they hold your spine steady, still, and safe when you're working your peripheral extremities. So if I'm grabbing a heavy pan, I need to brace my core to protect my spine so that I can pull that pan towards me. I'm going to use a cast iron skillet because I have one that probably weighs, I don't know, 100 pounds or so. It's not really that heavy, but it feels like it. But I'm pulling it towards me. I always brace my abdominal muscles first so that I don't tip over, or so my spine doesn't go out of whack while I'm grabbing something heavy. The spine in this situation serves as a solid anchor, so I can lift, pull, and lift and pull while protecting my spine so that my spine is stable without injuring my back. So if you want to work on core mobility, crunches, anything where you are bringing your rib cage to your hip bones, it's not a lean forward, that's your hip flexors, it's crunching, and your pelvis will rotate forward slightly. those are your abs working. The second thing you can do is work on immobilizing this or stabilizing the spine. So the spine stays still while you're working other parts. Think of planks. If you're holding something straight out in front of you and you're bracing your abs, you're working your core. If you're doing a plank, that is the number one best and safest way to work on core stability. So crunches for core mobility, planks for core stability. All right, exercise also increases the strength of your bones. Resistance training and impact exercises help improve the strength and the density of bones. The stronger your bones are, the more they can take without breaking. I'm just going to say that. So if you fall down and you have strong bones, your bones are less likely to break. What about exercise causes the bones to become stronger? Well, if you're doing resistance training, the muscles are working. The muscles are attached to bones through connective tissue. When the muscle contracts, the connective tissue pulls on the bones, and your brain knows, I need to keep those bones strong. They're being used as an anchor. That's number one way. Number two is if you're doing impact exercises, you can see me bouncing here a little bit. I sit on a stability ball at my desk every day. And as I mentioned, I do have a little issue with my spine. So I want to make sure to keep it strong. So all day long, I'm bouncing, creating a little bit of impact on the vertebrae in my back. And that helps lay down more minerals and get my bones strong. Anything that pounds a little bit. So if I'm walking and I'm pounding my legs, think running, or little bounces, jumping rope, those types of things tend to make your bones stronger. Now, depending on your age, you may not want to jump rope or go jogging, but you can bounce on a ball, you can lift weights, you can use resistance bands. All those will make those bones much stronger. The last thing I'm going to talk about with, there we go. The last thing I'm going to talk about today, they kind of go hand in hand, coordination and agility and proprioception. So have you ever heard of proprioception? It's often referred to as the sixth sense. It's a type of brain-body connection or communication that allows the body to know where other body parts are in relation to itself. There's also spatial awareness, which is your body knowing where it is relative to the space around it. I'm going to talk about both of those and just refer to both of them as proprioception. So if you're wondering, what the heck are you talking about, Evan? Well, let me tell you, if you close your eyes and touch your nose, you're not looking in a mirror, but you know where your nose is. You know where the top of your head is. You know where your other elbow is. Without looking, I can touch my foot or my toe or my abs or my shoulders, because proprioception lets us know where my hand is in relation to my nose, in relation to my ear, in relation to my shoulder. If you don't know where your body is relative to itself or the space around it, it's really easy to trip and fall. I thought my foot was in front of me, but it's not. It would be like stepping off a curb that you don't see all the time. So proprioception is really, really important. I also use an example of as you're walking or driving down a road and you're making small corrections all the time with your steering wheel. You don't have to think, okay, go left at 1.1 millimeters. And you don't think that, you just automatically make those corrections so that you stay straight in the road. If you didn't make those corrections, at some point, you'd probably go off the side of the road, even though maybe you thought you were holding the wheel still. Well, this is how proprioception works. It just keeps you aware and on target, on balance all the time. Symptoms of having poor proprioception can include balance issues, clumsiness, or really uncoordinated movements. Things that lead to poor proprioception: sedentary lifestyle, muscle damage, illness, or if you've had a surgery and they have to cut some nerves, you'll notice that your proprioception is kind of bad for a while. Well, it's easy to build back up with practice. And you can tell when it's building if I'm going to go back to standing on one leg. You're standing on one leg. Well, what's your foot doing? It's wobbling kind of all over the place, trying to keep you balanced. Over time, that foot wobbling is going to stop because your proprioception has improved so much that you don't even see it happening anymore. You're more balanced without having to think about it. All righty. So proprioception is definitely a use it or lose it situation. You can tandem stance or stand heel to toe, walk heel to toe. You can close your eyes and turn your head side to side while standing. If you get dizzy or lose your balance, you know your proprioception is a little bit off. Other things that you can do to help improve your proprioception goes hand in hand with improving balance. Do things with your opposite hand. Practice touching things or knowing where things are without constantly having to look at it. So my husband probably laughs at me. This morning, I left the drawer open, meant to close it, didn't get it closed all the way. So I reached back with my foot to close the drawer instead of turning around and looking at it. I was just testing myself just to see if I could do it. I know it's kind of silly, but anyway, another thing that we do here at Good Sam is we do something called protective stepping. We have 4 classes every single week that work on nothing but balance. Level 1 and level 2, each level is twice a week. In every class, we work on what's called protective stepping. If you've ever done Tai Chi, you've done protective stepping steps. And we do it over and over and over. These are a type of footwork that helps you if you lose your balance. This footwork will get your body moving very quickly and reactively to keep you from falling. If I'm falling forward, protective stepping I have practiced enough by using protective stepping that I will instantly step forward without falling. Same with falling back or to the sides or at angles. So protective stepping is something I highly, highly recommend. And we do it all the time here at Good Sam. We found it to be really important. Anyway, that is what I wanted to share with you today. I hope I didn't talk too fast, but if you have any questions, I'll stay on for just a little bit longer so I can answer those for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Evan. That was a wonderful presentation. I know that a lot of times people can be a little nervous as far as, aging. And when you start to kind of lose your stability and, you might start to wonder, well, what kinds of things cause me to fall, or am I more prone to falls? So I think I'll just jump right into our first question. So if you have any kind of foot or ankle injury, I know you mentioned them, but I just wanted to go back to it. What are some exercises people can use that don't necessarily require people to walk?
If you're sitting in a chair, you can pull your toes up and back down. So I'll lift my hands up. If my hands are my feet, just lift up and down and work on that range of motion. Work on foot circles, and then also work on pedaling. So one foot comes up while the other goes down. Also work on lifting heels and toes separately. Even if you can do that opposite, so you're lifting one heel and one toe, that is a great way to get a little bit more balance without having to stand up on it. If you have access to a swimming pool, you could do that. That really works well. Or if you have any elastic bands, you can attach a band to something and then pull up using some resistance, or pull down or to the sides. Those are all good things you can do.
Great. So I know you mentioned to have good shoes and a couple shoes to kind of look out for. So what are the best types of shoes for people to wear as they continue to age?
Well, every foot's a little bit different, but you want something that's easy to get on that is not easy to get off. So that would be something with Velcro usually works really well, like a walking shoe that attaches with Velcro, where you don't have to lean over and tie it. I saw something brilliant from an occupational therapist. She used a lady's tennis shoe that looked, it was just a really simple laced up tennis shoe, but she laced it the opposite direction. So instead of lacing, starting at the toe and working up towards the arch of the foot, she started at the arch of the foot and laced it down towards the toe and just left it there. And that way the lady could, our resident could use a shoehorn and slide her foot in without ever having to tie her shoe. So I thought that was a brilliant idea too. But Velcro works really well. Any kind of a real supportive tennis shoe or walking shoe, I highly recommend.
I know a lot of times, I even have family members who really like to use house slippers. So would you recommend maybe just using the full shoe for the house slipper rather than those slip-ons that just cover a part of your foot as well?
I would, and I'll tell you, my dad used a house slipper and it even had a back on it, but they have a really long driveway. He went out to get the mail and was walking uphill and literally slid out of this shoe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So if, around the house, I suppose it's not that big of a deal, but I certainly, if you're going to be leaving the house or if you have those shoes on very long, I'd put something a little safer on.
Good. Awesome. All right. So the next question, so somebody who experiences maybe vertigo, what are some things they can do to prevent or help when those types of things maybe would cause a fall?
That's a tough one. First, know the cause of your vertigo. And a physical therapist oftentimes can address that. Have you ever heard of the Epley maneuver, or whoever's asking? If he or she has gone to a physical therapist, they may have had something called the Epley maneuver done. If you've had the Epley maneuver done and you still get vertigo, then things that you can do to improve your balance before you go out, something to work on every day is hold on to something and then close your eyes. Put one foot slightly in front of the other. So you're standing like so. Close your eyes and turn your head side to side and down and up. And after several weeks of doing that, you should start to be able to do it without getting dizzy and nauseous. If you're getting dizzy and nauseous, you certainly have vertigo, but this is a way that you can help exercise that or get used to it, unfortunately. Vertigo is a big reason that people use walkers, because you have something to hold on to if you suddenly have a bout of that dizziness, and it's uncontrollable. When you get that dizzy, you're going to fall if you don't have something to hold on to. So a walker is a great tool. Hold on to it. A four-wheeled walker you can sit down on until that vertigo passes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So one thing I wanted to get your opinion on was also grip strength. So of course, with grip strength, to either hold on to a walker or a handrail or anything, just kind of your opinion on the importance and what people can continue to do to make sure they're exercising their grip strength.
It's funny because in everyday life, that's not something you think a lot of.
Absolutely.
And if you use it too much, you get carpal tunnel, and that's no fun. But you do need a strong grip strength for simple things, holding on to weights while you're weightlifting, or holding onto your walker. If you're holding a cup or a mug or something, you don't want it slipping out of your hand. So things that you can do, I'm going to hold up my mug here, is just hold a mug and squeeze and relax and squeeze and relax. You can open and close your hands. You can put your hands in rice and open and close your hands, and that'll work your hand strength, not necessarily grip strength. For grip strength, if you have a resistance band with a handle, stand on the band, and so you've got the handles in your hands and you're just rolling your fists in and out and that will help with grip strength too.
Awesome. So for family members who have somebody that's aging, what are some good, questions that we can be asking, or maybe conversation starters that we can use to kind of get ahead of the game as far as fall prevention goes for a loved one?
You know, that is so tricky. Generally, if somebody sees how bad it can be, that's a really good motivator. But until they get to a point where it's important to them, it's really hard to motivate them. Telling somebody you need to exercise because it's important to me isn't going to do it. I wish it did, but it doesn't. If you encourage social interaction, like joining an exercise class or doing something with a friend, walking with a friend, that will motivate somebody more than saying, do this because it's good for you.
Mhm.
But if they have had a situation come up like a stroke or a heart attack or something like that, where now their health is threatened, oftentimes that will be a motivator.
Mhm.
So if you're talking to somebody trying to get them to exercise, make sure you address that it can be fun, that find somebody to do it with you. You kind of want to save your life is going to go to hell in a handbasket as a final resort.
Right.
But the fact is, it's true. Your life will be much better. You will get to do the things you want to do if you stay physically well. If you don't stay physically well, your mind will want to do all kinds of things and your body cannot do it.
Mhm.
And that's a horrible place to be. That's a handicap. So, but say that as a last resort conversation. This is going to be fun and we're going to find a social group to do it with, like a senior center or something. Use that as the first conversation.
Awesome. Let me just make sure I didn't miss any questions here. Um, yeah, I think that is all the questions that we have, and all of the questions, Evan, that I have as well. So we will go ahead and wrap it up just a little bit early. So thank you, everybody, for joining today. Just as a reminder as well, we are recording today's webinar. So if you have anybody who would also benefit from this presentation from Evan, feel free to point them to our website. It's Northern Colorado 55better.com. And there we also will have our other presentations that we had earlier in the week and last week as well. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, Evan. We appreciate your time. And yeah, everybody have a wonderful day.
Thank you.